Thank you very much, Lee. Good afternoon, everybody. I can see names, I can't see faces, so I understand if you don't want to be on video, that is perfectly fine. But I just want to welcome all of you and thank you for inviting me to this week's health talk. And I actually am here, a mental health therapist, social worker by license at Altman Behavioral Health is where I reside. And like Lee said, my passion is stress management. How can we feel better? And so that being said, when you hear the word self-care, obviously you saw our talk this week. And I just would like to get a little bit of feedback from you. It kind of helps me set the tone for our hour together. If I can know from you, what is self-care to you? What do you, when you hear that word, what does it mean? What is it? We all have our ideas of it. Anyone care to speak up and share what self-care means to them? Yes, Karina. Thank you.
Karina, you're there we go.
Hi. Yeah, to me, it's just making time to relax, to just break away from the routine and just, even if it's just 10 minutes, to me, that's what self-care is.
Absolutely. Taking that 10 minutes and when you do that 10 minutes, what are you doing in that? When you say relax, what does relaxing mean to you?
I like to watch shows on Netflix. Sometimes I'll pick a show, the short show, some of them are 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Or now that the weather's nice, I like to sit in my patio, just sit out there and maybe listen to a little music, just try to keep it simple.
Absolutely. Keep it simple. I like that, Karina. Thank you very much for
You're welcome.
That response. I appreciate that. Anyone else? So self-care, sometimes people think that self-care, I've heard through my work that they think taking care of themselves, self-kindness, self-love, self-compassion, they've been maybe taught or heard that is selfish. And I'm here to dispel that. And research shows that us taking care of ourselves is first and foremost important. I'm going to give you a little analogy. You've heard the analogy of on the airplanes, putting your oxygen mask on first. I have another one for you that I kind of want to leave you thinking about as a takeaway today. And that is that the heart pumps blood to itself first before the rest of the body. If it didn't do that, it would die. Okay? So when you think about that in correlation to our own self-care, before we take care of everybody else, we really do need to take care of ourselves, and we need to figure out the best ways to do that work for us, right? What works? For Karina, what works is taking some time and going outside. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about over the next few minutes is nature and being outside, right? Winters are tough on us in Northeast Ohio, and the clouds are tough on us, can be. So those are things, vitamin N is what I like to call nature, because it really does help in managing that stress and anxiety. Anything else from anyone else that wants to share or ask a question before we go forward? Okay, thank you. So when we think about taking care of ourselves, we think about stressors, we think about work, we think about all those things that we need to do in a day's time. when do we find time? When do we find time to take care of ourselves? How many of us at our jobs do we take our lunch break? Anybody? Take your lunch break? That's important, okay? Taking your breaks is important to helping that stress. Good, I see that, Tammy. Yes. Caitlin says, I always take it. I usually go out to my car and lay the seat back. Nice, nice. And I'm in just relaxing in the quiet. Oh, there we go. We got one. Susan says, rarely does she take a break at lunch. Susan, do you want to unmute? Because I want to talk to you.
Okay.
Hey, Susan, thank you so much.
Sure.
So give us a little insight. What is it that you do? And share with us, and what's your background? And you rarely take a break. So talk to me about that.
So my job basically is gathering all this data and then presenting it to the physicians. And it just seems like, there's always a constant to-do list. There's always something to do. So I don't know. There are a lot of days, if I walk to the cafeteria to get a sandwich, I just eat it at my desk and keep going. Or if I even bring my food with me, then I just, I'll have a snack at my desk and I have lunch at my desk. So I don't know. It just seems like there really isn't time to take a break. There's just so many things to do. And then I look up and it's time to go home. So
right. That makes for a fast day, yeah?
yes.
In some respects,
Sure.
right? Right. So when you're gathering this, and I'm going to say half hour, 45 minutes, hour, technically your lunch hour?
An hour.
Hour. Okay. So outside of that, what do we do if we're not taking lunch, taking our breaks? And I understand the thought process behind not taking that, right?
Sure.
What happens to us? How long can we sustain that, right? When we talk about self-care and we talk about self-love and kindness and helping others and doing for others, would you get, and you don't have to answer this if you're not comfortable with it, but do you get feedback about taking your lunch or not taking your lunch? Is that supported if you do?
I'd say it's more the norm in our department to not take the lunch. So everyone just sort of works through it.
Works through it. Okay. All right. So I appreciate that. And outside of work, how do you take care of yourself? When do you find a downtime? Because it's real easy for us, is it not, to say, I don't have time, I can't, I'll be farther behind, right? That's a certain thought process. And we're going to get to where we set boundaries. In self-care, setting boundaries is huge. And also our thinking about what are our thoughts, right, about taking breaks, allowing us to take time for ourselves, okay? Because in order to change behavior, we also have to look at our thinking. In order to talk about anxiety and stress, it all revolves around, a big part of that is our thought processes around that. So I think it's important, as Susan said, it's easier. I go to the cafeteria, I get my stuff, I bring it back. I'm guilty of the same thing at times and have to catch myself, right? No, I deserve to take a break. I deserve to go outside and sit in the sunshine, right? Just to decompress. And as Karina said, take those breaths, take the moments, turn on some music. And I don't have the name in front of me and I apologize, but our friend that goes to her car and lays the seat back, right? And relaxes and just breathe. And we're going to talk about some mindfulness and ways to do that as we move forward. But I'm just trying to get like the background on what we do and what we don't do. So I appreciate your feedback. So as we think about anxiety, and we think about the world, and we think about the last several years of our lives that we've come out of, hopefully for the most part, have come out of, what kind of stress and anxiety has that brought to us, right? The pandemic, the affairs of our world right now, right? This adds added stress to our daily lives. How many are newsies? How many watch the news and keep up on that as far as on a regular basis? Do you want to share? I used to be like watching the news all the time. And as when we talk about stress management and we talk about helping ourselves to help others, I'm not saying put our heads in the sand. I'm just saying sometimes we have to turn off the TV, we have to turn off the phones. I do, but I try to keep it short. Karina, thank you. Right? Yeah. Small doses when we talk, small doses of it. Not that we don't care, not that we're compassionate for the world and everything that's going on, but I think it's really important for us to know what have we caused, what can we control. And Susan says was watching both morning and evening, but has cut back. Yeah, I think that's wise. I think that is a self-care measure that is huge, because again, our thought processes that are involved here when it comes to anxiety, when it comes to how we respond and react. Stephanie says that I purposely don't, added stress for me and just made me worry more. Absolutely. And then and there's a lot of it that we can't control, right? Caitlin says, I don't watch it. Maybe that's not good either. I just can't handle all of the negativity. And I think if we can look at it, Caitlin, when you say, I don't know if that's good either, when we think of a mindful approach to this, it's not good or bad. It is just what it is. And you get to make that choice, right? You get to choose how much, because you know you better than anyone. So take it and not judge that. It's okay. It's okay. Whatever you choose to do in that is the right thing for you. And I think that as we move and we think about turning that off, going outside, listening to some pleasant music. It started to say about the anxiety and the stressors being in our thought processes, right? How do we view that? How do we think? Research shows that we can have an activating event. Something happens. We turn on the news and we see yesterday's news, right? With the kids in Texas, the families. That's an activating event. And automatically what that does for us, each individual, think about the number of people that saw that, right? Each individual person has an automatic thought about that. And research shows that the majority of our automatic thinking is negative automatic thoughts. We have an event happen and we automatically go to the negative. And what that negative thought can do and drives in us is a feeling, right? So if we have a negative thought, you think that the feeling is going to be positive most of the time? No, it's going to be a negative feeling, which is going to drive the negative behavior. Okay, so I'm saying I'm saying that to help when we're stressed, when we're anxious. Anxiety has so much to do with our thinking, okay? How we think. And if we can start to how we perceive, and we can start to catch those gnats. I like to use gnats as the negative automatic thoughts flying around our head. Even when we perceive our own stress, okay? So those gnats flying around, how easy is it to catch a gnat? Not very easy, right? So if we can start and begin to catch those thoughts, then that's where we get to challenge. Because what happens in mental health and in anxiety, stress, if we have some depression in there, those clouds that are hanging over us and our thoughts, just because we think it, wait for it, this is another take home. The heart pumps blood to itself first, right? Remember that one? This is another take home, is that just because we think it doesn't make it true, right? So those gnats flying around, we got to catch them, and then we have to challenge that thought. Is it true? And what evidence do I have to support that? Or is it a habit? Is it a way that I've begun? Am I only thinking this way, and are my thoughts being supported just by habit? Are they being supported by what I want that to be? Okay, so we have to challenge that. And then we can react and respond differently, which in essence is going to help us feel better, less stressed, less anxious. We start to think, okay. And that's where mindfulness comes into play as well. Okay. We just gave you kind of a rough, down and dirty CBT kind of example with thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Okay. And like I say, that stems, anxiety is anxious thinking. Anxiety is worry about the future, the what ifs, the unknowns, okay? The reality of, in certain cases, that can all be brought on, the pandemic, right? All of those things. So to challenge those thoughts, we have to be on top of our game. How are we on top of our game? By taking care of ourselves, right? Taking those lunch breaks and taking the time to honor and respect ourselves so other people can respect us as well. They see us taking care of ourselves and respecting ourselves, that you matter enough. Did I just say you matter? I said that. You matter enough that you're taking care of yourself, okay? And then that enables you to take care of the others that you have in your life. So when we think about setting boundaries, what does that mean to you as part of keeping anxiety under control, stress under control? We think about our thoughts, and we're gonna summarize this, but the next thing is our boundaries, and that's what's boundaries? How can you set boundaries in a healthy way to take care of yourself? What does that mean? Susan, that might be taking lunch, okay? Setting a boundary that, you know what? No, I deserve to take my break. I'm going to take a half hour. I'm going to breathe. And then I'm going to, right? Setting that boundary. She says, okay, I'm giving you permission. You give yourself permission to take that break. Okay. Set that boundary. Like, no, I get to do this. I matter enough. I'm respecting myself. I'm respecting everyone else that I'm taking care of. And I'm going to go and breathe and listen to music or just walk around or just do what? Nothing. Just keep it quiet and just listen to what you can hear from nature naturally. Okay? Kind of ground yourself in those moments. Absolutely, Karina. Sometimes saying no. Saying no is an excellent, healthy boundary. Caitlin says, trying to immediately shut down the negative thoughts, not allow myself to think that way. And how does that work for you? Can you shut down those negative thoughts? How we do that is we have to change the brain, change the neural pathways, right? How do we do that is what we practice grows stronger, okay? What we practice grows stronger. So if we practice negativity, doom and gloom, that's going to kind of be that way, right? A way of thinking. So if we put in more positive, we put in more joy, we put in more gratitude, Gratitude is a huge component of this. Christine says, separating myself from the drama as much as I can. Absolutely, absolutely. And that is setting a huge boundary, right? And not in more or less being an observer, noticing, awareness, right? That, oh, this is going on and I don't have to engage. I don't have to take on other people's emotions, other people's thoughts, right? Because they're having their own thought process going on, right? And perceptions going on. So if we can learn to, you know what, I don't have to respond. I can just observe. I can just be. Okay. These are all parts of mindfulness. And these are all that component of gratitude, loving kindness towards others, towards even loving kindness towards those that maybe we don't necessarily get along with or don't understand. We can still have loving kindness for them. We can still wish them well, right? And loving kindness towards ourselves as well, right? All part of taking on the stressors of what we have to deal with on a daily basis and what's going on in our nation and the globe, right? How can we take all this on and feel better and do better in our own corner of the world, what we do. So I think that's huge. Saying no, I like that one. I believe that was Caitlin. Saying no is a boundary. It's a healthy boundary. It can be uncomfortable, especially for caring, compassionate strivers and health workers and helpers and service. Saying no is huge. And then you have to deal with the feelings of what? Feelings of maybe guilt, of, ooh, I can't say no. I have to. It's expected. There's nobody else to do it. We're short staffed. We're this, we're that. But it's almost a must to be able to say no. And guess what? The other person's thoughts in reaction to you saying no is okay. That's their reaction. You get to say, you see that they might be frustrated, right? Just acknowledge it. I know that might be frustrating, but I do have to set this boundary and I'm learning to do this. And that's how I'm starting to practice. And I'm going to have to say no on this one, but I'll get you next time possibly, right? That's just kind of how, not saying no forever, but saying no for now. And I think that's really huge. That's a huge boundary. Good stuff. Thank you for sharing. I really, truly appreciate it. In communication, assertive communication is something that is also part of self-care and a must in how we take care of ourselves in that stressful anxiety, okay? Managing. And when I say assertive communication, what does that mean to you? Anybody? We have 3 styles of communication. There's passive, aggressive, and assertive. Passive communication in a nutshell is someone that is quiet, limited eye contact. They kind of put everyone else's feelings and thoughts, if you will, before their own. They respect other people's feelings at the detriment of their own. And they're those overly people pleasers, quiet, they kind of get taken advantage of or, possibly walked on. The aggressive communicator can and sometimes is a passive communicator in some ways that can just kind of be tired of that and they don't know how to find the balance. And so they could be aggressive at times, but aggressive communicators are those that are demeaning. They want their emotions. Maybe they haven't been heard in the past and they want their emotions and their thoughts and feelings acknowledged, and they're aggressive, they're loud, they're yelling, they're in your face, they're pointing fingers, they're just, don't want to insult your intelligence, an aggressive communicator, right? So the balance between passive and aggressive is assertive. Okay, so assertive is taking that balance, and that's what this is all about. If nothing else from this hour today is it's about finding our balance. When we talk in stress and anxiety, self-care, we're talking about balance. Okay, so in our communication, we've talked about thoughts, we've talked about boundaries, and we're going to talk about communication to help reduce. Are we ever going to get rid of stressors? No, right? We're going to be anxious, yeah. And stresses can be a good thing as well, right? A motivator. But communicating in a way that we are assertive, where we respect ourselves enough to assertively and respectfully acknowledge and validate someone else's feelings along with our own. And that's how we get our needs met, right? Through an assertive way. So when you talk about saying no, setting that boundary, okay, rather than just keep saying yes and keep doing it and being passive and not, or we're that possibly that aggressor is like, you asked me for the last time, I said no last time. It's difficult for me to be an aggressive communicator, but I can be, I guess. But finding that assertive, being able to say no. So an example of that and being able to do that is, okay, I understand that you need that help, but I also understand that I'm not able to do it. My workload is too much. At this point, I can't do it. I'm not saying no forever. I'll get it next time. Okay, where you can have an open dialogue with whomever you're saying no to, if it's a spouse, if it's, a child, if it's, if you're saying no, I understand you want to go to the game and maybe next time, but for this time, we got to say no because, right, where you're respecting both sides of it, you're acknowledging the other person's feelings. Okay. Any questions? Any thoughts? Any feedback? Okay, we'll just keep moving on. So we talked about the naps. Okay, we talked about gratitude. So now what I want to spend some time with is looking at, what do you know about mindfulness? Mindfulness is a way of helping decrease the anxiety, right? Learning to catch our automatic thoughts. Those are, and communicating. What do you know about mindfulness? Anybody? You hear it a lot. Since the 80s, Jon Kabat-Zinn is like the mindfulness-based stress reduction. I'm going to give you some resources as we go through here that hopefully you'll take a peek at, because it is their mindfulness is a way of approaching things from an in the moment, right? Stop and smell the roses, one day at a time, right? Those are those things, being present. What do you know about it? Anybody practice mindfulness, like formally or informally? Okay, cool. So mindfulness, according to, there's definitions out there. Okay, Karina says yes, off and on. You gave me a moment of thought. I did have an automatic thought when you said that about going outside and taking those moments, Karina. I thought maybe you had. So yeah, there's mindfulness according, by, like I say, Jon Kabat-Zinn. His definition is, in a nutshell, mindfulness is an awareness of whatever your anchor is, okay? And when I say anchor or objects, and we're going to get into what that means, but you'll hear the breath, right? That's kind of like your anchor. That's your go-to. It grounds you. You can come back to. We can't change the anxious thinking, right? We can be aware of it. And his definition is mindfulness is paying attention with intention, non-judgmentally. Okay, so that non-judgment is a huge part of how we think, how we challenge our thoughts, right? How we speak from an assertive way. And then just kind of how we behave, how we act, how we are. So when you think of mindfulness, mindfulness meditation, it becomes a way of life. It becomes a lifestyle. You know how when we think of self-care, a lot of times we think of, right, let's get the basics out there. Sleep hygiene, right? Going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, whether you're on the weekend or not, trying to do that. Some of us cannot do that, and I understand with those schedules, but doing that as much as you can, that sleep hygiene is huge for self-care. Exercise is self-care, right? Getting your cardio, getting your strength training, it's all huge. Walking, huge for our self-care. And then, of course, our diet, right? Eating, sleeping, exercising. We know that to be the truth. We know that. It's researched, it's out there. That's self-care, taking care of yourself like that. When you think about mindfulness being a way of taking care of ourselves, and as diet, exercise, sleep, if it can be a way of life, so can mindfulness, a way of being in the world, okay? And if we can do that where we pay attention in this moment, because this is all we have. When we think of anxiety, anxiety is us living in the future, right? Worried about the future, stressed about the future. And we think about depression, and it's kind of our thoughts consumed with the past and what's been behind us and our history, okay? And yes, there's a biological piece to each of those, but I'm keeping it in this perspective as far as our thought-based, okay? So then when you think about anxiety is the future thoughts and worries. Depression are the thoughts and worries in the past. All we really truly have, right, is now, here and now, because the future's not guaranteed. The past is in the past. All we have is right here and right now. So when we're thinking and our thoughts are negatively consumed with whatever it is, we're losing moments. We're losing moments of joy. We're losing moments of gratitude, right? And that's where the practice of mindfulness is and can be, and research-based, evidence-based, that it works to help improve sleep, decrease blood pressure, right? Immune system response. It can help us in those areas as well, okay? So when you think of paying attention with intention, non-judgmentally, what does that mean, right? And mindfulness is something that is not necessarily an easy thing to teach or explain. But what it is when you talk about breathing and you talk about awareness, all right, you want to, and if you all, I wish I could see you, but anyway, I can't. So if you all would just kind of sit and relax in your seat, okay? And what you want to do is you want to, now you're going to have thoughts are going to come and go, right? Because our thoughts, our brains don't stop thinking, right? They're always thinking about something. And you might even be thinking about what the heck, you know, and there might be some judgment in those thoughts towards, I can't do this. It's too nerve-wracking. I'm too anxious to do this. Then you know what? That's okay. What you do is you want to think about and bring yourself to the moment, and you want to concentrate on your breath. Okay. So when I want you to find an anchor, whether it's your abdomen, whether it's your your nose, your nostrils, right? Whether it's something in that you can literally feel in your body, okay? And then what I'd like you to do, we're just going to practice a couple of these grounding deep breaths, okay? But I first just want you to get where you are just breathing naturally. And I want you to have a focus or an anchor, whether that's, like I say, your abdomen, your chest wall, or your nose, where you're just breathing normally. And I want you to just kind of concentrate on that. What does it feel like when you're breathing and you're thinking about your breath and you're in this moment and, oh, there's a gnat flying around my head. And you know what? Don't judge it. What I want you to do is just breathe, and I want you to come back to your anchor, okay? This is you taking care of you in this moment. This is you taking care of just breathing and just being grateful, right? Being grateful for that. And just kind of sit, notice your body, notice how you're feeling in your seat where you're at, okay? Oh, there's another gnat comes flying in, flying around. It's okay, don't judge it. What you're going to do, breathe in. And I want you to take a breath in through your nose, and you're going to hold it for just a few seconds. And then you're going to exhale very slowly. I like to call it a controlled exhale, which means just exhale slowly. And I want you to feel your shoulders and your neck relax, okay? So as I guide you through this, just kind of, and if you want to count, if that helps, that's good. But when you exhale, I want you to exhale longer than you've inhaled, okay? So we're going to do oxygen in, carbon dioxide out with a hold, a brief hold in between there, okay? So inhale, and whatever your anchor is, keep that in mind, hold, and then exhale slowly and feel your shoulders, feel down through your spine as you exhale. Exhale longer than you've inhaled. So let's just do a couple of those as we move forward, okay? Inhale and do a hold, and then exhale slowly, okay? And again, remembering to exhale longer than you've inhaled, okay? When you're feeling anxious, almost to the point of panic, if you will, you get sweaty, heart kind of races, you start getting a little dizzy. Those things going on, what I'd like you to remember from today as well is to do those because, panic is panic. You're going to feel like, oh, if you get to the point where you're tight in your throat. Okay, Caitlin says, I found doing these breathing exercises along with using peppermint oil in a diffuser or even, oh, I didn't see what the even was. Absolutely. It's excellent. And I love that, Caitlin, that you share that because where this is taking us and you just helped. And this is why I like doing these kind of things interactively because it leads right to our five senses. Because when we want to talk about the mindfulness, breathing, Caitlin's just added another sense, which is the aroma and the smell, right? The peppermint in a diffuser. It's excellent. It's excellent because our five senses, when we want to talk about stress reduction and we want to talk about how to care for ourselves, using our five senses in whatever it is we do, if we are cognizant of our five senses, it's going to change your world. I promise you. Okay? I promise you. Because what you're doing is it grounds us, it brings us back to the present moment. And Karina says, I like to use rain sounds. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's something very calming and peaceful and joyful about that, right? So 5 senses, what are they? Sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch, right? So remembering those, and when we use those to either ground us if we're really anxious right? We take a couple of our grounding breathing, right? At the same time, you want to use your five senses to be in that moment. So you're going to look around the room. You're going to see, you notice color, you notice pictures, and allow yourself to be in the moment with whatever those pictures are, right? To really, really use your five senses. When you're talking to a friend, right? You can be using your five senses as you really engage with that person, right? It changes us if we know, if we can touch and ground and we can feel, we can taste. When you're preparing meals, this is another way of being mindful. And they talk about mindful eating. I don't know if any of you have heard about the Raisin Exercise, where you have a raisin and you go through the five senses and you look at a raisin in your hand. And some people, I did this at a workshop one time, and there were people that didn't like raisins. How do you think that went over for me? Kind of blew the whole mindful experience, because they didn't like raisins. And once you got to taste, they're like, nope, not going to do that. So mindful eating, I like to think of even preparing our meals. Okay, like when we're at home and we're, for instance, a big old pot of chili. Okay, you're making a pot of chili. How many aromas go into that as you're preparing that, right? So I want you to think about, next time you're doing this, of using your five senses in that moment, right? So you're grounding your ground turkey or your ground beef, whichever you want to use, right? And you're adding spices to that, right? And you're listening to what? The frying up of the ground meat, right? You're listening to that and you're smelling that. And then you're going to put in a component of gratitude as you're making this, okay? That I'm grateful for, right? What are you grateful for, right? Then you add your green peppers and onions, whatever you add, whatever your recipe is, right? You start doing that through that whole process of preparing your meals. Then when you sit down to eat that meal and you're mindfully using your five senses to eat that meal, number one, it's going to slow us down in how we eat, which is better for us, right? And it's also going to taste better. I promise you. I promise you. It's going to taste better. Okay. So it's mindfulness, breathing, five senses. You just learn some strategies for self-care and helping reduce that anxiety and the stressors of our daily, I'll just leave it at that, of our daily. So life is for living, okay? Life is for living. So open the window. I'm going to dance in the kitchen as you cook, all right? Play that music loud and sing. Turn off the news. We talked about that one. Check in on someone that you love. Get some fresh air. We talked about that as well. Watch the beautiful show of nature. Okay. And you know what, even and this is a challenge for me, and I'm just going to be honest, it's a challenge for me in the wintertime. I'm not a winter person. I've lived in Northeast Ohio all my years, but I'm not, but the other three seasons, yep, got it. So I've had to teach myself to embrace even the winter. For me, even the winter. So, but there are beautiful things in the winter. Feel alive again. Okay, feel alive again. What does that mean when I say that? What does that mean to you? And you don't have to answer it. If you want to answer it, great. But what does that mean to you? Feel alive again, right? Those things that was on my short list to do. That's feeling alive again. That's finding joy. That's finding color, right? Truly color. Exercise, watch this. Feeling excited, Caitlin says. Absolutely, absolutely. And when we talk about exercise, Exercise without judgment. What? You know, you hear that. I think Planet Fitness has the ad, no judgment zone, right? So exercise without judgment. I'm going to say without judgment of self, right? Just enjoy it. Go for a walk. Use your five senses as you go for a walk and just take it all in, embrace it, right? Embrace that.